So, SHEMYANET began as an idea of a Mr. Clausen Drayson. Everyone on Island knows him as Charlie, and of course make sure you spell Charlie correctly. It is not Charlie, it's Charlie, Charley, not Lie. It's Charlie, not Charlie. So what happened was in 2004, Charlie and I, who worked together on the missile defense side of the house out here, came out here to start putting the stuff together. And we had very limited network capability, which was only through the companies, the major corporation that was out here at the time. Or you had the option of dial-up. Yes, it was 2004, and we had people still using dial-up on Island. And you were dialing up on a phone line to Seattle. So Charlie and I got here March 1st. Charlie, being a very technically minded internet type guy, got here, and we realized that the only thing we were doing was we were living off our Boeing network at the time. And it looked like people were doing a lot of work out here because, people would work all day and then they would stay in the office all night. Well, we were staying in the office all night because we were trying to get our banking done. We were trying to get everything else you had to do in 2004 that you could do on the net back then. But it was also, like I said, the equivalent of dial-up. So Charlie, as of April of 2004, comes to me with this idea. And my response to that was, good luck on that, because I didn't think it was going to ever happen. So it started off as basically the basic idea was we basically run a cable between two rooms so two people could play a game. But because the networks were corporate owned and not all of us worked for the same companies, were corporate paid for through AT&T, and we had limitations. And I got to certain points where we couldn't even do our jobs. Couldn't even access our email because this company didn't want you to do that, and that's what we were subbed through. And so Charlie, with his grand idea, took it and ran with it. And a year later, we had a dish with our own dedicated SATCOM, and of course favors had to be called in to get this hooked up. And we got it hooked up, and we, from a cable between two rooms, turned into a network to hook up to the SATCOM thing. And this all happened out of building 598, which is one of the dorms here, and this is where all the missile defense personnel resided at the time. Well, favors had to be called in to get this done. So one of the favors was, hey, you help us with this, we'll allow you on the net, because we'll have more than enough bandwidth at that time for just two people, so we'll be fine. And as things developed, starting in October with the getting of the dish, which was bought out of a company out of Anchorage, Alaska, which was bought, and then the dish arrived in January of 2005. The issue, though, with that dish is that with our current dish we're using, it is the most well-traveled satellite dish in the world. So it was bought out of Anchorage, Alaska, but because it was the way it was purchased, it had to travel all the way down to Florida to be inventoried. So it flew all the way down to Florida. That's a lot of equipment. Be inventoried so someone could put a sticker on it. And then it traveled all the way back to Anchorage, Alaska. To then eventually get out here. And then by, I would say, April of 2005, we had the dish up and aligned, and we had a basic network set up. And SHEMYANET has come a long way from what it was. You weren't using these back then. First of all, these didn't even exist back then. I mean, you had the old Captain Kirk flip phone thing going on. So 598 was it. And 598 was it basically in one hallway, which was if you had to be on the second floor of A and B wing in 598, which I happened to reside at, Charlie happened to reside at, to get any network connectivity. And since we had called in favors, we developed a basic Wi-Fi system. Of course, everybody realized internet existed then over there. So the hallways of A and B wing in 598 became the great hangout place for everybody because they could grab their laptops and they could go to the hallway there and they could sit there and they could get on the internet and just drag down our bandwidth that we had. But it was useful because everybody did it. We had a commander out here. He was stuck out here because of bad weather. He was the one who became a big advocate of this. So basically, SHEMYANET, which didn't really exist as SHEMYANET at the time, in any formal sense, it was basically a club, of internet club that began. So people started helping us build stuff, loaning us equipment, and it was like, okay, well, you know, you guys live on the first floor, you'd like to live so we expanded it to the first floor, and then we expanded it to the third floor, and then we expanded it to the rest of the building. And then, you know, we got sick of trying to jump over 30 legs of people as they're going through the hallway trying to get back and forth to the laundry room and stuff and trying to get to work. So we put up an RF shot over to 598. And then, as time passed, that developed into a fiber ring between these buildings that was dedicated to SHEMYANET. And then when a decision was made to move people out of 598, so those of us who remained from missile defense moved over here, we eventually got to the point where we rehubbed the system. The club of SHEMYANET got to the point where we realized we had about a $300,000 worth of equipment and investment in this, and it was all basically in an individual's name because we were a club. And that then quickly turned into we had to formalize. So, of course, before we began with the dish, we got all the permissions from the Air Force to do this. Then we got the permissions to formalize ourselves into a non-profit corporation to operate out here, formalized through the 11th Air Force. Everything was approved, and we've been operating ever since. And we are now a formalized non-profit corporation. SHEMYANET is the ones who provides the ATM on the island. The ATM was provided originally because the only way to pay for SHEMYANET was through cash. We have now advanced to the point where you can just go on your smartphone and pay for the connection directly. So, we have much better bandwidth than we used to, and it is the primary morale infrastructure item on this island. Give you an interesting story though. SHEMYANET is also critical to the communications on this island. In 2019, there was a cable cut of the AT&T main fiber out to the dish for AT&T. Now, AT&T provides our telephones. Also is advantaged, you can get internet through them if you're willing to spend 15 grand a month for a T1 line. We provide people anywhere from $100 a month up to $300 for 6 months. So SHEMYANET became the primary comms until AT&T could come out here and provide telephone comms out here. If it wasn't for SHEMYANET, there would have been no reliable telephone communication on and off this island. And of course that was through Wi-Fi calling, which, you know, now exists since, what, 2013, 2012. So yeah. So now SHEMYANET has went from, like I said, a wire between 2 rooms, 1 building with some connectivity so 2 people could do their job because of the limitations of other company networks, to now being the primary morale item on this island. And it's all thanks to one man, which is Mr. Klaus Charlie, with a Y, Andresen, the founder of SHEMYANET. He is our founder. He's the one who developed it, he's the one who pushed it, and he's the one who came up with it so slowly, and he is still it's his baby, and he's advanced it and made it what it is today, and you can thank no one else but him. We've all helped and assisted, but he has been the driving force behind it. So even though this is not the internet you may be used to sitting at your house, it is the best internet in the Western Aleutian chain. And SHEMYANET is the largest provider of internet access to individuals in the Western Aleutian chain. And it's a complete nonprofit, and besides supporting individuals individually, there's companies that come out here and depend on it when they do their business, and of course, at many times, the government depends on it to do their business, the Air Force and stuff. So. And that's a brief history of SHEMYANET. Any questions?
No, thank you for sharing.
Okay.
So